Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Introverted Nerd Watches. I am your host, Reese, and today I am back because I watched Season 2, Episode 2 of The Gifted, unMoored. I freaking love this show. I love it a lot. Or maybe I just like it so much more because I just got finished watching Fear the Walking Dead and I fucking hated that show. So who knows? Either way, I'm enjoying myself this time. I'm not a cranky pants anymore. So I don't know. That's better for everybody else, right? Everybody's happy if I'm happy, right? That's what I like to believe. I'm a bit self-centered, if you haven't noticed. But any old way, before we get into the episode, let me tell you that you should subscribe to the podcast. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play. If you're a Android person like me, I listen on Castbox, and I listen to other podcasts on Stitcher and Podcast Addict. So wherever you get your podcast, subscribe and rate and review the podcast for me, because that's a really nice thing to do. Get other people to listen. Recommend the podcast to all of your friends and family. I welcome everyone. What else? That's it. Let's get into this episode because it was pretty good. Overall, I enjoyed the episode. I think there were some things that were just kind of like, I'm side-eyeing. A bit of clunky dialogue in certain places. And I'm not a big fan of the whole flashback to shit that happened in the last episode. It happened a couple times in this episode. I hope they don't make a habit out of it, because it's like, dude, it's only the second episode. We remember what happened in episode 1. At least I do. And I don't, I remember what happened in the last episode. You don't need to flash back and tell us things that we saw. So, yeah. So I wasn't happy about that. But overall, like I said, I'm really enjoying the show. And I liked this episode. So unMoored is it a pieces moving episode? It was not super action packed. It was a lot of character and relationship stuff. So I enjoyed that because my shipper heart needs to be filled with love at all times, and I got it from both of my ships this week. So everybody's kind of struggling. John is having he's having a hard time because he's blaming himself for what happened in Atlanta. And it's sort of the way it's affecting everybody's lives now. So, he's having a rough time. Andy, or Andrew, as Reva calls him, he's having a hard time because he misses his family, but he's also having the dreams that Lauren was having. I like that I was right. I mean, it's not really a big deal. It probably any loser on the street that's watching the show probably guessed that they're both having the same dreams. But, I like being right. So let me have this. So he's having dreams. He's lying to Reva, which is a big fat no-no. Jace or Jason, I don't like to use, I want to be on that guy's side, but he's such a terrible person. Jason is back. I was wondering when he was going to come back. Jason, the former Sentinel service guy, is back in this episode, and he's still hung up on the Mutant Underground. He will not give it up, even though he does not work for Sentinel Services anymore. He's got problems. And the Von Struckers. The Von Struckers or they're not the Von Struckers. They bring up the Von Struckers and I keep getting it like mixed up. They are the Struckers now. The Struckers are all having problems because Reed and Caitlin are arguing. Lauren is sitting around listening to them argue. Andy is off with the other people and he misses them, but everybody's just got a ton of problems. And except for Clarice. Clarice seems pretty good. Like she's the only one that's like pretty even keel and can still joke about this stuff that's happening. So everybody needs to talk to Clarice. Clarice is the rock that everybody could lean on in this season because she's the only one that's okay. So what's happening with John is that we get a flashback to him before he joined the Mutant Underground, and there's a lawyer named Evangeline something. I forget her last name, but she finds him and he's fighting in like these underground fights against regular ass humans who are and if you want to be like sort of like, what are you doing, John? Like, you have like a superpower. You can't be out here beating up humans. But then the humans are like, kill the mutie. And it's like, God damn it, human beings. Why do we have to be so awful? See, I was trying to defend them, but then they pull out sticks and they want to cheat. So they're like, kill the mutie. And I'm like, see, screw you guys. Like, beat them up, John. Like, kill all of them. I don't know why humans always want to like fuck with mutants when they know they don't have superpowers. It's like, that you're just a regular ass human, right? That you don't know what this guy's superpower is. He could like burn your ass up in a second. You have no idea what he could do to you, but you still want to fuck with him. And that's what I'm like, whatever. You get what you deserve, humans. But anyway, she catches him after one of his fights and she's talking to him, and this is when she talks him, she's trying to talk him into leading a chapter of the Mutant Underground. And she's a mutant lawyer, and she shows him her power, and I was like, wait, I thought she was okay. I'm a dummy. Full disclosure. Hello. My name is Reese. I am a dummy. But she shows him her power, and she scratches her nails I believe they turn black and they get like longer, like claw like, and her skin starts screwing up like well, it looked kind of like grayscale. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, that's what it looked like, but it's meant to look like reptilian. And she starts breathing out some sort of like, it's not steam, but it's like some sort of, I thought she was a dragon. Okay. Full disclosure. I was like, wait, is she a dragon? Where's the Khaleesi when you need her? Because, okay. Yeah. I was a dummy and I thought she was a dragon. Like, is anybody, are there any mutants that turn into any X-Men that turn into dragons that I'm not aware of? Like, I'm not an X-Men historian. Oh, maybe I should contact Jay and Miles from Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, and ask them if there are any like dragon mutants, because that's what I thought she was. She started breathing out that smoke and I was like, is she a dragon? I'm such a dumbass. Feel free to contact me on Twitter and tell me if there's a dragon mutant or if I'm just a dummy. I could be a dummy. I admit it. But this is when she talks him in, and he's having, he has a flashback to that. And he also, so he talks to Clarice about it, and I really love their relationship. They have some cute moments in this. I like the way that they joke with each other, but they also just straight up talk to each other like they're in a relationship, like a regular couple will do. Like, she asks him, questions like, what's wrong? when he seems like there's something wrong, it's not just let's ignore it for the dramatics of it. She actually asks him, like, hey, are you okay? And he talks to her like you don't expect a guy to talk about his feelings, which is really cool. And he tells her all about how what it was like after he got out of the military, and just the shit that happened. And eventually he was like taking pills in order to forget his problems and all of that. And eventually Evangeline helped him get off of the pills, and you actually see a flashback of him like chained up to a bed, and it's like these heavy ass chains because he's super strong. But it's like something that you would see like they would chain a train to or something like that. It was heavy as shit, those chains. So he's the one that gets unmoored from the actual chains. It's like a boat. I said a train, but it's like a boat. That's what you do. When something is moored down, it's usually a boat kind. It's a nautical thing. So I figured it out. Just I'm not as dumb as I thought I was. So yeah. So he's the one that gets unmoored, physically at least. And so Clarice actually asks him straight. I just love this. She asks him like, do I have to be worried about this Evangeline woman? Like, really? And it's not a silly, jealous, like you think she's going to be constantly jealous of this woman kind of thing, but it's like a real thing. Like, did you actually have, because he tells her like things with Evangeline are complicated, between him and Evangeline are complicated. And when she asks about it, it's sort of in a jokey way, but it's, he knows that she's being kind of serious. She wants to know, a little bit more information about their relationship, but it's not in a crazy girlfriend kind of way, which they could have done. And they kind of did with Dreamer in the first season. Like, Dreamer was kind of the crazy ex-girlfriend. Not really. I don't want to just relegate her to crazy ex-girlfriend, but I think people know what I mean. Like, Dreamer was like the one that wasn't giving up and all that, but that has nothing to do with this. I'm just, whatever. Keep moving. I have to keep moving because this could get really long. So the decision is made when after he talks to Marco. Oh, let me finish up with him and Clarice. So this is when he tells Clarice his problems. And I was just saying that I like that they talk about things, and she's sure once she learns the story, she lets it go. She's like, okay, you said it's not the type of relationship you had is nothing that I need to be worried about. So, go on. If you're going to go ask for help. And I think something that they would have done is they would have had Clarice go with him to meet Evangeline, and they didn't have that, which is something else that I like. They had Marco and Caitlin go with him to see Evangeline later in the episode. And I really like that because I didn't want it to be like John introducing his new girlfriend to Evangeline and having an awkward interaction between these two women over him, which I appreciate. So anyway, Marcos, I keep calling him Marco. I believe Marco, was his name Marco and something else? Maybe I'm confusing him with somebody else. Anyway, Marcos is like struggling. He wants to get to Polaris and his daughter, and he's losing hope because he, like the last episode, he doesn't know whether they're alive or not. So John is trying to, help him out, and that's when he tells him about Evangeline, and they decide to go to see her to see if she can help them in any way. So let's go to the Struckers, because Caitlin and Reed are having a shit ton of problems. They're arguing all the time over Andy. when they talk is when Caitlin is starting to pack her bag so that she can go to, Evangeline is in Philadelphia. So she's packing her bag to go to Philadelphia with them. And she's telling Reed, and Reed is like begging her not to go, telling her that the family needs her, and she's frustrated because she's like, Andy needs me. I have to find our son. And she throws in his face like, yo, dude, if this was Lauren, would you be telling me to stay here, and not look for her? Andy is 15 years old. I need to find him. And they're, it's basically these two parents picking their faves. So Andy is a mama's boy, Caitlin's a daddy's girl, and they can't come to an agreement. And he tells her, I need you to stay here. Please do it for the family. And she tells him she has to go, and she's doing that for the family too. And she leaves to go with Marcos and John, and he stays home with Lauren. And Lauren, they show flashes to Lauren. Lauren is in the other room. She can hear all of this. So she's getting more and more upset. I feel so bad for Lauren because she's the forgotten child, and not forgotten in that they just ignore her. But I was writing in my notes that the kid that seems like they don't need as much help is the one that everybody sort of ignores. And when they see that Lauren isn't outwardly really struggling in the way that they saw Andy was, it's easy to just say, okay, Lauren is doing good. I don't have to talk to her about it. I don't have to ask her any questions about it. She's doing good. She's going to do what she needs to do. And it's such a shame because by the end of the episode, you see that when she talks to Reed, she's having a ton of problems, and Reed is having problems because he starts looking through his father's notes and journals and he starts reading about himself. And he starts reading about how his father was keeping note of the fact that his his glucose something levels, some kind of glucose levels in him are raised. And you see a flashback to Andy in 1985 when he's still in high school. And he's having those headaches that he was having, that he had in the first episode. And then Lauren interrupts him, and we don't get any more information about it. But we're going to get more info about that because, his father kept notes on everything, which is really cool to see him reading about stuff. Like as a teenager, he knew. Does he remember that, or is the fact that his memory also suppressed of those moments where his powers were trying to come on and, they didn't? So I wonder if he remembers that time. Like, were we seeing his flashback of, him in school, having that headache, or is it just like, I don't know, just a regular old flash to his father, just because it's what his father wrote down? I think it's Reed having a flashback though. So I wonder why he couldn't remember. Like, I don't wonder why he was never suspicious of his powers. Whatever. We'll find out eventually, right? So, let's finish with Reed and Lauren. So Lauren and Reed do eventually talk, and this is when Lauren basically reads him too. Like she's been reading the shit out of her parents in these first two episodes. So she tells her dad. Her dad asks her, why aren't you talking to me? You need to talk. And she tells him, or he tells her that she's not being honest with him. And she tells him, you're not being honest with me either. You know, she tells him that she knows that her parents are arguing, but he's never stopped to talk to her. You know, she's upset. You know, she tells him, we killed 15 people in Atlanta. And she's been looking up all of those people. She knows their names. She knows their kids' names. She knows, you know, a lot about these people. And neither one of her parents have ever stopped to talk about it. They never talk about Atlanta. And she tells him, you're looking for Andy, but you're not even stopping to ask me how I feel about Andy coming back. And she makes it clear that she loves Andy and she misses him, but a lot of shit went down and they need to talk about it. And and she leaves him. And this is when Reed has another flare up of his powers coming out. And we see, I was wondering what his power actually was. It's something to do with like fire, because we see the same effect from last week where his veins and shit start moving and it looks like fire under his skin. It is actually like fire or something, because he touches a file cabinet and melts it, and then he puts his hand through a brick wall because his hand is so hot. So I want to see the full effect of Reed's powers, because that shit is cool. And I want to know what Caitlin is going to do when she finds out that she's the only Strucker without powers, and her kids get their powers from their father. It's not just like he has some latent X gene. He's an actual fucking mutant. So he's going to have all kinds of problems too, because he was putting mutants in jail, and it's like, turns out you're a mutant. Like, you're one of us, and you were persecuting us and prosecuting us. And yeah, he's going to have a ton of shit going on. And I noticed that his powers only come on when he gets really upset and emotional, particularly with his family. Like, it happened last week when he found out Caitlin was shot, and happened this week when he had his little run-in with Lauren. So I wonder, like, it hasn't happened in front of anybody else yet, but that can't always be the case. Like, the way he and Caitlin are arguing, that shit is going to happen in front of other people, and it's going to be ugly when it does happen. So who knows? Let's go on to Jason, because Jason is back. He is in private security now, because he doesn't work for Sentinel Services anymore. And things, professionally at least, seems to be going well, and personally, they could be going better personally, but he and his wife are still together. She's still very much in love with him, but he's a bit off. You know, we see him when he first comes in and he starts talking to his wife. You find out that he just got a new contract at work. So he should be like more excited about it, but instead he starts talking to his wife. He's like, yeah, I think there's something going on in DC. I know about the power outage up there, and that shit is not looking like legit power outage. It could have something to do with the mutant underground. And his wife is like, no, we are not having this anymore. She is just done with him. She is just so done with him and his obsession with the mutant underground. And she just doesn't want it anymore. She wants him to focus on their family. And she tells him she knows about the files he has hidden up in the attic, and that it's not right, and that he just really needs to move on. And he tells her that he's going to move on, and he tells her that he's right, she's right, and that he does need to move on. But instead he meets up with one of his former colleagues, And he starts asking that guy about the blackout in DC. And the guy says, yeah, we got told it was a transformer. And, basically it was all like a legitimate sort of electrical storm thing that the electricity blew out. And Jace is not having that because he tells him, like, I know you he asked him, like, do you really believe that? And the guy is like, yeah, why wouldn't I believe it? And that's when Jace starts explaining, like, I knew this mutant from the Mutant Underground named Polaris, and I know her powers. And the guy, I mean, it's almost like the guy spoke to his wife, because the guy is like, come on, my guy. Like, come on. No. Like, I understand what happened to you, but you need to be focusing on other shit and not this conspiracy theory stuff. And Jace looks like really dejected after that. Like really Sentinel service guys, we're not on the same wavelength here. I don't have anybody to back me up. I'm just being treated like a crazy conspiracy theorist. And the thing is, I don't really like Jace. I understand what he's going through, but he is so like far out wrong that I can't even get on his side. But he's actually right. He's right about Polaris. He's right about the blackout in DC. So his instincts are right. And it's almost, he's sort of being gaslit, like unknowingly, by the people around him. But it's like, yes, he does need to be focusing on something else because he is a problem. But this sort of kicks him into gear, and it makes him realize that he has to stop. And he goes back to his wife, and he throws away all of his files about the Mutant Underground, and he tells his wife that after the attack, you didn't only lose a daughter, you also lost your husband. And he rededicates himself to her, and he tells her, he's ready to move on, and he apologizes. And it's actually a nice moment until you realize this is only the second episode of the season, and he is so gonna backslide. Like, I mean, in terms of, like, if you look at his obsession with the Mutant Underground and with mutants, as equivalent to some sort of like addiction, he is going to fall off the wagon so fast. I cannot wait to see what he does next, because I really have no idea. I have no idea what he's going to do next, because since he doesn't work for Sentinel Services and he's sort of in a private sector, he doesn't have any rules now. He's just sort of, there's no government to stop him in the way that his job did before. There's no, he doesn't have anyone over his head to stop him when he gets out of control. And he is so going to get out of control in the back half of this season. I cannot wait for it. So John, Marcos, and Caitlin go to see Evangeline. And Evangeline is really not having it. They're begging for help. John asks her at one point if she can go to the other Mutant Underground, people in the Mutant Underground and like the other cities, and bring them back for help. And she's like, wait a second. What are you talking? Like, no. Atlanta just happened a few months ago. You got people killed. I'm not bringing other mutants in here to... there aren't enough of us to start fighting a war with you. I'm not going to bring you here to lead these people to death. And that's kind of fucked up. But I understand where she's coming from. And plus, Marcos, like a few seconds before this happened, calls her the Lizard of Oz. And I'm like, dude, you're coming here to beg for help. What are you doing calling this chick names? The Lizard of Oz is a good name, though. It is a good insult. But still, it's like you're begging for help. What are you even doing? But they eventually give her the flash drive that they got from the dude from last week about the inner circle, and she tells them about Reva Page and how she looks through the files, and she tells them that Reva is gathering weapons, she's doing a whole bunch of shit, and basically her conclusion is that Reva is about to start a war. So like I didn't know. Like, I mean, we see what Reva's trying to do. We see the flash that the Cuckoos gave to Lorna when she was giving birth about how they want to go to the White House. And somehow it didn't even occur to me, like, oh, they want to start a war between mutants and humans. And that's the idea, because you only see the end result of them standing on the steps of the parkway outside of the White House. You don't see how they get there. So I'm like, yeah, dummy, of course. War. It's not like humans are going to all step aside just so that mutants can like share in this utopia 50-50. That ain't happening. So yeah, war. A war is coming. Or at least Reva hopes so. And so Evangeline sends them away. But she get the one thing she does give John is she tells him, I can't help you. I'm sorry I was so harsh, but I'm not sending help for you. But she gives him the information about a mutant that lives under the DC, that lives in the tunnels of DC. His name is Erg. E-R-G, Erg. Is that somebody from the comics? I didn't look that up. So I have to... Somebody tell me if that's somebody from the comics. What's that group that lives underground? The mutants that aren't able to pass for human. I forget what they're called, but are they bringing those mutants here? The mutants that can't be seen, that don't want to be seen above ground. I forget what their names are, but that would be cool if they brought those people onto the show. So yeah, they're going to see Erg. And I didn't see the flashes, not the flashes, but the preview for next week. So I have no idea whether they're going to see Erg next week or, you know, whether that's something that's going to happen into the future. And so, yeah. That's it for John and Evangeline. And then they go back with, you know, the plan to see Erg. Marcos is like drinking. He has a drink of champagne with Caitlin in honor of Dawn. And he's telling her like this was supposed to be him and Lorna having this drink of champagne. And he's losing hope. And Caitlin tells him, you know, don't lose hope. You know, that's the worst thing that can happen. John and Blink, Clarice are too cute. And, you know, she jokes about, again, she asks him if he's okay. And, you know, he explains the situation, and she jokes with him about how she thought that Evangeline would have him chained to another bed. And they kiss it out, which is they're so freaking adorable. I love them. They're too cute. There's not a whole lot. I just like their relationship, their goals. But John is not okay because I guess after they bang, he gets up in the middle of the night and he goes out and he's like punching metal, because he's still upset. He's punching metal and he's having flashes back to Atlanta, where you see where Dreamer fell down and was killed, presumably, and he sees an officer who's all burned up in the street. So he's still struggling, but I don't know, they'll help each other. And now on to my favorite part. Reva Page, my girl Reva. who was so fine in this episode. Just more fineness. I freaking love her. I mean, I love her. I just love her. I was about to say something very inappropriate, but she's fine. I love her. And I cannot get enough of her. So Reva in this episode is training. She's getting everything set up. So she tells the cuckoos that all the blackout made the newspaper. People are starting to ask questions, and Reva is like, no, we got to shut this shit down. And so her plan is for the cuckoos. She tells the cuckoos, yo, everybody that you talk to, in the last episode, everybody that you told the plan to, everybody that you asked for help, they got to die now. Because we can't have people out there that know anything about us. So those people got to go. And Esme doesn't want to do this. She's questioning Reva, but Reva's not having it. And the other cuckoos turn on her. They accuse Esme of getting soft, while they were in jail. It's kind of funny because Reva has got them shook. So Reva calls them in, and when she shows them the paper, they start, Esme in particular starts stuttering. She's like, hey, I didn't know this would happen. We did everything we could. None of these people would say, like, she was on that explanation quick. Reva is no joke. But Reva has to calm her down and like, hey girl, no, it's not a problem. I'm not blaming you, Esme. She had to let Esme know, I'm not blaming you. This is not your fault. I know you didn't do anything wrong. Like Esme was shook. I mean, all three of them. And it's like, Reva powerful as shit. She has got these people so like, I love it. So, Esme, they eventually, the cuckoos eventually, go do what they're supposed to do. And this is the first time we get a flashback from the first episode when Reva tells them that they have to kill everybody that they saw. This is when we get the flashback when she gives when they give the guy the money, and when they go into the place and they tell the security guard that he doesn't know, he doesn't need to know their names. So it's like, yeah, we saw that in the first episode. It wasn't really necessary to see in this episode. I mean, by the time they go, do what they're supposed to do and kill those people, we would have seen them and, realized who they were. And, so the flashback was just kind of useless, waste of time. It's sort of like we need 42 minutes in this episode. We only have 40. Throw in a couple flashbacks and, it'll pad out the time. So Andy is training, and they have Andy sort of breaking through these like walls, and they want like the longer the obstacle goes, the thicker the walls get. And that's what they need him to break through, when they start to enact their real plan. And he does it okay the first couple of times, and then he eventually he literally hits a wall. So Reva is like, what is going on with you, Andrew? Because Reva is the only one that calls him Andrew. She is not having any of this Andy crap. His name is Andrew. Your mama named you Andrew. I'm going to call you Andrew. So Reva. Oh, Reva. So Andy is, Reva talks to Andy one-on-one, and she asks him, like, what's the problem? And he tells her that he was having an off day. And Reva goes into story mode, and she tells him about how she didn't have many friends growing up, and she had this one friend, this one girlfriend, and they got into a vicious argument and they were, really angry at each other. But that same day, the purifiers came and started attacking mutants. And she tells Andy that her off day was she was trying to help her friend, but her off day she was having an off day and she couldn't help her. She couldn't access her powers the one time she really needed them to save her friend, and she had to watch her friend bleed to death in the street. And she tells him that our powers tell the truth even when we don't. Do you have anything that you want to tell me? And Andy says, no, he doesn't want to tell her anything. That he basically lies to Reva. And Reva, quirks that eyebrow and is looking at him like, you got your chance. Like, tell me the truth. But Andy, being a white kid, because a black kid that sees their mother looking at them the way that Reva was looking at him would have got the message right away. Would have been like, okay, mama knows what's going on. Let me just tell her what's going to happen. It'll be worse if I don't tell her right now. But Andy didn't grow up with a black mother. He grew up with a Caitlin. And Caitlin is Caitlin. So, but Reva knows that something is going on with him, and she has Fade follow him, and Fade sees him. Andy goes to buy a burner phone. He goes to call Lauren at the homeless shelter that she's at, but Lauren isn't there. And his father eventually answers the phone, but Andy doesn't say anything, and he just hangs up the phone and he destroys it. And Fade sees him do that, and he reports back to Reva. And Reva is not happy. Andy is becoming a liability, and that ain't cool. So the cuckoos are out. They go to kill all the dudes from the last episode. It's so sad because the dude they gave the money to, they gave him that money and they told him, don't do anything for 6 months. You keep a low profile for the next 6 months. And this dude is out testing out personal airplanes because he is going to buy an airplane. And they're like, my God, you really out here buying an airplane? Like, is this really low profile? Is this what you think of when you hear keep a low profile? Buying an airplane? Really? But this poor bastard, they tell him to take a walk, and they're on this airplane hangar, and they turn on the airplane propeller, and they're gonna have him walk into an airplane propeller. And I'm such a terrible person because I'm like, oh yeah, this would be really cool to see him walk into that propeller. But no, Esme brings on a truck, and he gets run over by a Mack truck or something like that. And she tells them that, that's what they get for doubting her toughness. So yeah, no propeller, run over by a truck. I really wanted to see that propeller thing though. I'm such an awful person. So Andy's looking for help anywhere. He goes to talk to Lorna about how he's been failing at training lately, and Lorna tells him yo, you better get your shit together, because if Reva thinks you're not with her 100%, she gonna fuck you up. You don't want to mess with her. Get your shit together, Andy. But it's this thing where Andy has been a sheltered strucker for all of his 15 years. And now he's sort of out here on his own with people. And he's no longer a kid in the way that he was. So he's got problems because he doesn't want, I know, I make fun of Andy being the angsty teenager, angsty Andy, but I don't think he wants to be out there killing people or being like evil villainy type. He just got a lot of shit going on, and he's being taken advantage of. His angst and his sort of immaturity and his naivete is being taken advantage of by Riva and the rest. So, you know, he's Andy. He needs somebody holding his hand at all times. But what he does tell Polaris is that he tells her about the dream that he had and, where Lauren was scared of him. But he also tells her that he thought his dreams was about, sort of being homesick and missing his family. But he doesn't think it's that anymore. He thinks that the dream is telling him that he needs to be with Lauren. Because what they call it, Fenris, I think is what it's called, when their powers combine, whatever, their Wonder Twins thing that they got going on. Their Wonder Twins activate. So he tells her that he thinks he needs to be with Lauren. And he and Lauren are sharing that dream. We see an extended version of the dream that Lauren had last week. So I wonder if this is like a future thing. Like, is this something that's going to happen in the future, or is this just the way that their powers are telling them they need to be together? The way it's manifesting is in this dream, in this shared dream. So Andy goes to training again and he fails. And the Cuckoos eventually tell Riva that his sister is the reason that he's failing at the final barrier. And she tells them, like, yo, Andy is calling his, he made a phone call to his family. He could be telling them, he could be giving them information about where we are. He gotta go is basically the end of what Riva is saying. Like, we can't have him around here if we can't trust him. And then she goes to talk to Andy, and Andy was about 2 seconds away from being dead Andy. Instead of angsty Andy, he would have been dead Andy, because Riva goes to give him one last chance to tell the truth about what's going on. And he lies to her again. And it's like, Andy, do you know that the Cuckoos are around? Do you know that there are people around that can read your mind and that know what's going on? And Riva is basically standing in his face telling him, I know you're lying. But he still tells her, I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth. Nothing's going on. And Riva turns around and she starts drawing in that breath like she's about to hit the highest pitched note that she has ever hit in her life, and Andy was about to be gone. But he stops her and he tells her, you know what? I gotta confess. And what he tells her is that his mom knows that he plays what is the League of Legends video game. She's been messaging him for the last 6 months, telling him where they are. And that he tells her about the dream about his with Lauren and the phone call that he made. And it's like, wait a second, Caitlin, really? I get that you want to find your son, but giving him information about where you are when you already know that he's with people that you can't trust, is really fucked up of Caitlin. And this is going to blow up in her face, because that's what happens with the Shuckers. They can never do the right thing. They always think they know what they're doing, and they don't. And things blow up in their face. And I can't wait until this blows up in Caitlin's face, because she's starting to get on my nerves. It's like, girl, you have a whole ass Lauren there who needs your help. And I get you're worried about your son, but you need to stop neglecting your daughter. I can't with these Struckers. Caitlin, she's just so frustrating. But Riva is stopped, and you actually see that Riva Reva has a real moment. Like when she was talking to the Cuckoos earlier, when she was telling them that she might have to kill Andy, I wasn't really sure whether when she tells Esme, like, I don't want to have to kill this kid, but that might be, the course that we have to take. And I was wondering, like, is she lying when she says that she doesn't want to kill him? Like, is she just like a ruthless murderer who doesn't care about Andy at all? And while she's like not the most friendly or warm maternal figure, you can tell that she really, when she turned around and she was, inhaling so that she could, activate her powers, she had her back to him, and it really felt like she didn't really want to kill Andy, but she was willing to do that because, that's the cost of living. If Andy has to die so that we can all survive if he's going to be a liability. I appreciated it. And she actually eventually like gives him a hug and everything, and things are cool between them. And the episode ends with Andy, breaking through his barrier. This metaphor, you guys. He actually breaks through the final barrier. Reva is happy. And yeah, that's the end of the episode. Oh, and we also, no, that's not the end of the episode, because the end of the episode is Marco is standing on the roof, and he starts making this like projection into the sky that, something only Polaris would know. And Polaris sees his like light projection, and she goes to Dawn, and she's like, Dawn, look, your daddy is like saying hi. And she touches the kid's head, and she feels that Dawn has a high fever, and she starts screaming for help. One thing though, one like tiny little nitpicky thing, she touches Dawn's head, but she doesn't actually touch her skin. She touches the cap on her head, and she starts like, ooh, you're burning up. And I'm like, okay, is Dawn actually burning up? Like, she's so hot that you can feel through the cap, the little hat that she has on her head, that she's hot? Or is this just a mistake by the actress? It was kind of funny. I'm like, how could you even tell if she's hot? You didn't even touch her head. But Dawn, the sick baby, like, I'm fine with this baby, but I don't want this baby to be in danger every week for the dramatics of it, because like babies are fine until you realize, like, goddamn, we got to carry this fucking baby around. And this whole show, it becomes a bit much, and nobody really cares that much about a tiny little child. So while I don't want the baby to die or anything, I'm not that bad. I do want her to like fade into the background until she's old enough to walk and talk and not be a liability, or not just be like super annoying. Whatever. I'm a terrible person. It's already been established. So anyway, that's the end of the episode. I don't know what's going to happen next week, but I assume it's going to be something with Dawn and Dawn's sickness and new character in Erg. So I'm excited for that. So coming up on the podcast, everybody, next week, Black Lightning starts. So I'm excited about that. That Black Lightning starts on the 9th. So that podcast will be out next weekend. More Saved by the Bell. We're getting to the end of the 4th season. That show is about to end soon. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. So lots coming up. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Follow me on the Twitters. I'm at NerdTravertPod. On Instagram, I'm at The Introverted Nerd. And go to Facebook, like the Facebook page at facebook.com/The Introverted Nerd. You can also go to theintrovertednerd.com to get all of my back episodes, the archives. And if you want to send me feedback, because, if you love Thunder Blink as much as I do, and you want to talk to me about them, Send it to theintrovertednerd@gmail.com. I can talk about them all day. I need to get me some fan fiction about that because that's my shit. So I think that's all, you guys. Yeah. So follow me on the socials, subscribe to the podcast. All of this stuff is in the show notes. So just click on that and click through all the links and follow me and talk to me and love me. Until the next episode, everybody. Later.